They said Evelyn Grant was gone, the billionaire who turned a failing factory into a global empire. Her name at once stood for power, ambition, and control. Now, it was engraved in gold on a coffin surrounded by mourners dressed in black. The world watched as the woman who once owned half the city was laid to rest. But in the crowd stood a man no one recognized. His clothes were torn, his face marked by years of struggle, his eyes empty. Until they met the coffin, he had come only to watch from a distance, a forgotten soul paying respects to a woman he once worked for, a woman he believed never even knew his name. The priest's voice trembled through the rain. The crowd lowered their heads. The coffin began its slow descent into the earth. And that was when the man's expression changed. His breathing quickened. He stepped forward, whispering something at first, then shouting it loud enough to stop every heart in the cemetery. "Stop! She's not dead!" The mourners turned, horrified. Security rushed toward him as he struggled to speak. No one listened. No one wanted to believe him. But then, just as the first handful of soil hit the lid of the coffin, a faint sound rose from beneath it. A dull, desperate thump. For a moment the world stood still. Then came another sound, a weak, shaky gasp. Seconds later, the coffin started moving. Evelyn Grant was 52 years old, a woman who had built her fortune from the ground up. Her story was one of brilliance and brutality, a tale of ambition that spared no one in its rise. To her board, she was power. To her rivals, she was fear. To the public, she was a symbol of success. But to those who worked beneath her tower of glass and steel, she was something else entirely, a mystery that no one truly understood. Michael knew that better than most. Once, he had walked through those same glass doors with pride, a senior engineer at Grant Industries, the company she built with her bare hands. He believed in her vision, in her promise that hard work could change a man's life. But promises can break as easily as people. Years ago, one accusation destroyed him. They said he had leaked confidential data to competitors. No trial, no explanation, just a letter that ended everything. He lost his job, his savings, his home, and eventually himself. Now he lived in the shadows of the skyscraper he helped design, sleeping behind dumpsters, watching the lights that never went off, lights powered by the empire that had forgotten him. Then one rainy morning, the news spread across every screen and newspaper. Quote, "Evelyn Grant, billionaire businesswoman found dead after fatal crash." The world mourned. Her employees wept. And Michael just stared. Something about the report didn't sit right with him. The time, the location, the way her body was found in the rack with no witnesses and no clear cause. He couldn't explain it, but a quiet unease followed him all the way to the funeral gates. He hadn't come to be seen. He came because somewhere inside him he still couldn't hate her. Maybe it was guilt, maybe habit, or maybe it was the feeling that her story wasn't over yet. As the crowd gathered around the coffin, he stepped closer. And when he looked down at her face, pale, still, untouched by the marks of death, something in him froze. Her lips weren't the color they should have been. Her fingers weren't cold enough. Michael's heart began to pound. He whispered under his breath, "This can't be right." And that was when he saw it, the faintest flicker beneath her eyelid. He wasn't sure if it was real or madness, but what he knew for certain was that Evelyn Grant wasn't gone. Years before the funeral, before the headlines called Evelyn Grant a legend, Michael had been one of her brightest minds. He wasn't born into wealth, but he carried ideas that could have changed entire industries, energy systems that could make factories run cleaner, cities glow brighter, and people's lives a little easier. Evelyn had noticed him once. She'd even shaken his hand and called him the kind of man this company needs. But the higher he climbed, the more enemies he made. There were whispers in the boardrooms, whispers about stolen patents, secret deals, and money that vanished through shell companies overseas. Michael found the proof. He thought he was doing the right thing when he reported it, thinking Evelyn would protect the company she built. Instead, he was escorted out of the building before sunset, branded a traitor, and erased from every record. They said he sold secrets. They said he tried to destroy the company. Within a month, he lost his job, his apartment, his marriage, everything he had built. The city moved on. Evelyn Grant's empire only grew larger. But Michael never hated her. Not truly. He told himself she didn't know the truth, that her advisors had buried his name under a pile of lies. And so for years he watched her from afar, sleeping in alleys lit by the glow of her company's name on the skyline. Then came her downfall. The world saw the glamour, but behind the glass walls, Evelyn's empire had started to rot from within. Her board, the very people she had trusted, had begun to move against her. They wanted control, power, and profit. They called her outdated, too emotional, too controlling. She found out too late. Her closest partner forged her signature on major transactions. Millions disappeared. Her reputation faltered. She tried to fix it, but the betrayal hit her harder than any business loss could. For the first time in 30 years, Evelyn Grant began to lose faith in people, in loyalty, in herself. Her health declined fast. The woman who once ran on 6 hours of sleep and black coffee now spent days in silence, locked in her penthouse, alone. When she finally drove that night, the night of the crash, she had been seen leaving her office after an argument with her board. The reports claimed she loves control on a slippery road. They said she was found unconscious and declared dead at the scene. But no one questioned it. No one wanted to believe it. Her will was signed, her empire transferred, her story sealed. Until the funeral. Michael had watched from the back row as the ceremony began. He didn't belong there, but he couldn't leave. He felt something pressing on his chest, a strange certainty that this wasn't the end. As he stepped closer to the coffin, he looked down at Evelyn's still face. Her skin wasn't pale enough. Her lips weren't blue. Her chest, he thought he saw it rise, just slightly. He leaned closer. He could almost hear it, a faint sound like a breath fighting its way through silence. "Hey," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Hey, she's breathing." No one paid him any attention. The ushers stared at him with disgust. A few mourners stepped away, muttering. He tried again, louder this time. "She's alive." Security moved in, grabbing him by the arms. "Get him out," one ordered. Michael fought to stay. "Listen to me. She's not dead." The priest's voice began the final prayer. The ropes tightened, lowering the coffin slowly into the earth. And Michael's pulse thundered in his ears. He twisted free, stumbling toward the grave. "Stop!" he screamed, his voice breaking through the hymn. "Stop! She's not dead!" The crowd gasped. Cameras flashed. Guards lunged forward. And just as the first handful of soil fell onto the coffin lid, a soft, hollow sound echoed back. Michael froze. The sound came again, a muffled thud, too real to ignore. The whispers turned to shouts. The priest dropped his book. The guards hesitated. For the first time that day, everyone looked at the coffin. Then came another noise, faint but unmistakable. A weak gasp, a trembling knock. Michael stared, tears mixing with rain on his face. He was right. Evelyn Grant was alive. The graveyard descended into chaos. The rain, once soft, now hammered against umbrellas as voices rose in disbelief. Michael fell to his knees, shouting again, his hands gripping the edge of the coffin. "She's alive! Somebody help her!" 2 guards tried to pull him back, but the noise silenced when a faint thump echoed again from inside. This time, everyone heard it. One of the mourners screamed. The pastor stepped back, crossing himself. Someone yelled for a doctor. A young physician who had attended the service rushed forward, his suit drenched. He knelt beside the coffin, pressing an ear against it. His eyes widened. "She's breathing! She's breathing!" The world seemed to freeze, then explode into movement. Shovels flew, ropes strained, hands trembled as they pulled the coffin back up. Within minutes, the lid was forced open. And there she was, Evelyn Grant. her skin pale, her lips trembling, but her chest rising in shallow breaths. Her fingers twitched as if trying to reach for something that wasn't there. Gasps turned to cries. The crowd surged forward. Cameras clicked furiously. Michael stood motionless, rain pouring down his face. For years he had been ignored, invisible, and yet in that single moment, every eye was on him. Within minutes, sirens filled the air. Paramedics rushed her away, shielding her from the flashes and the noise. Michael watched the ambulance disappear beyond the gates, the sound fading into the storm. He didn't follow. He just sank to the wet ground, whispering to himself, "I knew it. I knew she wasn't gone." 3 days later, Evelyn Grant opened her eyes in a hospital room, lined with flowers and cameras waiting outside.
Her breath was shallow, her mind fogged, but she remembered fragments, the crash, the argument, and then darkness. The doctor's voice was soft but firm. "You're in a deep coma. They thought you were gone." She stared at the ceiling, the words sinking in. "They buried me." And then, quietly, Who stopped it?" The doctor smiled faintly. "A man, homeless, from what we were told. He said he used to work for your company. Michael, I think his name was?" Evelyn's eyes narrowed. The name cut through her confusion like a blade through glass. Michael. That name she hadn't heard in years, not since the day she'd signed a termination letter she hadn't even read. That night, sleep refused to come. She sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker below. Her empire still standing, but she was beginning to wonder who really controlled it now. Fragments of memory came rushing back. Meetings, whispers, faces she trusted turning away. She remembered the scandal years ago, the file they placed on her desk, the man accused, the board urging her to act quickly for the sake of the company. She signed the papers without question, and now she realized she had signed away an innocent man's life. A week later, against her doctor's advice, Evelyn left the hospital. No press, no entourage, just a plain coat and sunglasses. She asked her driver to take her somewhere quiet, a place most people never thought she'd go. The city skyline faded behind her as the car entered the outskirts, where broken windows replaced glass towers, and the glow of wealth vanished into shadow. She stepped out near a shelter, rain misting the pavement, and walked in. There he was, Michael, sitting on a worn bench, repairing an old radio someone had thrown away. When he saw her, he froze, disbelief flooding his face. He rose slowly, eyes uncertain. "You're alive." Evelyn managed a faint smile. "Thanks to you." Silence filled the space between them, years of pain and misunderstanding pressing on both sides. She said softly, "I didn't know. They told me you betrayed us. I signed the papers without reading the evidence, and for that, I'm sorry." Michael looked away, his voice low. "Sorry doesn't change what they took." "I know, but maybe we can take something back." That night marked the beginning of something neither of them expected. Not revenge, not redemption, but a strange alliance. Evelyn began digging through old records, secret reports, and encrypted files that her board had hidden from her. The deeper she went, the more the truth unraveled. Millions in offshore accounts, false contracts, deals signed under her name, and every clue led to the same circle, the men who had destroyed Michael's life. She reached out to him again, this time not out of guilt, but trust. "I need your help. They fooled both of us. Let's find out how deep it goes." Michael hesitated. For years he had dreamed of seeing her empire collapse. Now she was asking him to help rebuild it. But something in her tone was different. She wasn't the untouchable billionaire anymore. She was human, tired, changed. Finally he nodded. "If we do this, we do it my way. No lies, no deals." She smiled faintly. "Agreed." Together they began piecing together the puzzle, a trail of corruption buried under layers of forged signatures and missing files. Evelyn was relentless, Michael sharper than ever. Every night they worked in secret, cross-checking data from old servers, collecting evidence from whistleblowers, and tracing hidden accounts back to familiar names. And with every revelation, the image of Evelyn's empire, once built on power, transformed into something far more meaningful. For the first time, she wasn't fighting for profit. She was fighting for truth. The same woman who once ruled from the top floor of a skyscraper now sat beside a man who slept on cardboard, both united by betrayal, both seeking justice. And though she didn't know it yet, the fight they had just begun would change both their lives forever. Weeks turned into months. The quiet alliance between Evelyn Grant and Michael went unnoticed by the world outside. While the media celebrated her miraculous recovery, behind closed doors, a very different story was unfolding, one of retribution, truth, and redemption. Each night, Evelyn and Michael pored over documents that once belonged to the company she thought she controlled. Every signature, every contract, every message exposed a layer of deceit. They uncovered secret transfers from subsidiary accounts, illegal trades under her name, and falsified approvals that dated back years. The deeper they looked, the clearer it became. Evelyn's board had never just betrayed her. They had planned to erase her entirely. The crash wasn't an accident. The brakes on her car had been tampered with. Michael found the proof, a maintenance report altered by one of her senior executives. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The room was silent, except for the hum of the computer. Finally, Evelyn broke it. "They tried to kill me." Michael's voice was calm, but sharp. "And they almost succeeded." With each revelation, Evelyn's resolve hardened. The woman who ruled from the top floor had been brought to her knees, but now she was standing again, this time for something far greater than power. She called in a small circle of trusted allies. Her head of legal affairs, her former secretary, a young journalist she knew wouldn't be bought. Together they prepared a plan that would shake her empire to its core. It began with one press conference. No one knew what to expect. Reporters crowded the hall, cameras flashing, her name trending across every platform. Evelyn Grant, the billionaire who had returned from the dead, was about to speak. When she stepped up to the microphone, there was no arrogance, no boardroom polish, just a quiet, steady strength. "Some of you thought I was gone, and in a way, I was. But sometimes the truth refuses to stay buried, no matter how deep you dig the grave." She paused, looking straight into the cameras. "The company I built has been poisoned by greed, deceit, and betrayal, by the very people I once trusted. Today, I'm exposing everything." The files went public that moment. Screens lit up with leaked emails, financial reports, and internal communications. One by one, names were revealed. The same executives who had framed Michael, who had stolen from her, and who had conspired to end her life. The news broke like wildfire. Arrests followed. Her old partners fled the country. Investors withdrew, but the public rallied behind her. They saw not the ruthless billionaire they once feared, but a woman who had survived betrayal and dared to start over. Within months, Evelyn reclaimed control of her empire. But this time, she rebuilt it differently. Gone were the suits who measured loyalty and profit. She formed a new board made of teachers, engineers, and community leaders. She renamed the company the Grant Foundation, turning part of her fortune toward housing programs, education for underprivileged children, and small business grants for people like Michael once was. At the official relaunch, she stood on stage again, not in diamonds or designer suits, but in a simple black dress. And beside her stood Michael, dressed neatly for the first time in years. When the cameras turned to him, Evelyn spoke with a steady voice that silenced the room. "This man," she said, "was once accused of betraying me. But the truth is, he's the reason I'm alive. Without him, none of this would exist. And today, I'm proud to announce him as the co-founder of our new foundation, a project dedicated to helping those the world has forgotten." The room erupted in applause, but for Michael, it wasn't pride he felt, it was peace. Later that evening, as the crowd dispersed, Evelyn found him standing by the window, overlooking the city. The same skyline that once separated them now reflected in both their eyes. She spoke quietly. "I need to tell you something. When they fired you, I remember your name. I saw it on the paperwork, but I didn't question it.
I could have stopped it then, but I didn't. I let their version of the truth become mine." Michael didn't answer immediately. His gaze stayed fixed on the lights below. "For a long time, I hated you," he said finally. "Every night I spent on the streets, I told myself I'd never forgive you. But that day, at your funeral," he exhaled slowly, "saving you, it saved me too." Evelyn's eyes glistened, her voice trembling just slightly. "Then maybe we both got a second chance we didn't deserve." He turned to her, a faint smile forming. "No one ever really does." Months later, the Grant Foundation opened its first shelter, Haven House, built in the same neighborhood where Michael once slept. Its doors were open 24 hours, offering food, education, and hope to those who had none. In the entrance wall, a plaque bore a quote engraved in Evelyn's own handwriting. "Sometimes the people we overlook are the ones who save us, and sometimes the end of one story is the beginning of another." Michael visited the shelter every evening, greeting new faces, telling them they mattered. And Evelyn, once the untouchable billionaire, spent her weekends there quietly, serving food, listening to stories, remembering what power truly meant. Two lives once broken, now bound by truth, forgiveness, and the miracle of a heartbeat that refused to stop. Sometimes the people we overlook are the ones who hold the power to save us. In a world obsessed with wealth and titles, it's easy to forget what truly matters. But life has a way of reminding us. Evelyn Grant rebuilt more than just her company, she rebuilt her soul. Michael, the man the world once ignored, became the driving force behind a new mission, a life dedicated to giving hope to those who had none. Together, they opened shelters, provided food, education, and safety for countless lives, proving that compassion can transform even the hardest circumstances. True wealth, they learned, isn't measured in money, power, or success, but in humanity, forgiveness, and second chances. And in the quiet moments, Evelyn often reflected on the man who had saved her. She would say quietly to herself, "He saved my life, but more than that, he saved my soul." Would you forgive the person who once destroyed your life if saving them could change your own? If this story touched you or reminded you that kindness and second chances still exist, comment "second chance" and share your thoughts. And remember, stories like these are meant to be shared. Like, subscribe, and pass this story along because someone out there needs to hear it today.